Good morning. If you could join as NWC board, could you rename your square so we don't leave off or identify yourself, please?
So there's some consideration.
Oh.
Is there any other?
9 o'clock.
You running the show?
Yeah, man.
Next morning.
No, give me that. I don't wanna get your way.
You're welcome.
Mr. Clerk, you have a good show. Let's get it cranked up. Everybody good to go? Welcome. Probably in order of importance, I'll rely on Paul and Doug to suggest the proper recognition of John Zapian and Buck Hutchison, two pillars of this project and this community that are sorely missed. And Paul, really glad to see your thought about dedicating a bench or whatever's most appropriate with the family. That's just not just a great gesture, that's a well-earned, recognition for John, certainly, and Buck has plenty of recognition, name recognition and otherwise, but Doug and Paul, if you have anything you want to add to that, welcome.
I think, as Doug and I were thinking through the suggestion that was, finding a way to honor John Zappian, and we became pretty close to him during the QC campaign, frankly. He went out in the neighborhood and really worked the neighborhood on behalf of all of us. So, we have these benches that the Capital Campaign's selling that, we can put across there in memory of John Zappian and, his work as a community leader. We'll work with their family on that. But anyway, that way they can come any time a year down to the site, have a seat and enjoy some sunlight and enjoy, the memory of John. So I think if everybody's supportive of that, we'll move forward with that. And I think that they can, forever celebrate that.
The distinction really is John was there day one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And integral, and his comments, his thought, they were always thoughtful and good. And he was there finding collaboration and working with everyone. So I think that was our thought, is that he was like day one kind of guy. And we want to recognize that seed that he helped to plant back there. So
He kind of, my dad always used to refer to the 4 H's of humanity, humility, honor code, and honesty. And John was that in spades,
Right.
and the fifth would be a wicked sense of humor.
Yeah.
this will be a nice,
What, Paul, out of curiosity, number one, what's the channel that we can all contribute to that specific bench? And number two, what for other benches or other people interested in further that campaign, what's the average cost of it?
It's $10,000 is the investment for a bench. And again, don't feel any pressure. Obviously, you can just contribute straight to the Capital Campaign. If you'd like to do that in his memory, Steve, feel free to do so. And you can send those either directly to me or Angela.
Okay.
Anyway, but anybody else that might have a loved one that they're thinking about, we're selling 15 to 20 of those benches. And, if there's a family member you want to honor, they're $10,000.
Where are they?
They're gonna be just outside the Legacy building, so, around kind of the Legacy building and the areas, that are ancillary to us, so that people could just, if they're walking through the plaza and need to sit down.
Oh, will they be along Betty Cram?
There will be some along Betty Cram, yes. So, right, we're actually working with the authority to identify areas that we all like.
and there's gonna be an armed forces
Yeah.
monument out there, horses,
Right.
with American flag, and so that whole area will be a reflective place.
Well, I just wanted to add, obviously, I got to know John really well.
So, yeah.
And what's interesting, if you think about, in some ways, that relationship started in a stressful and adversarial sort of way. He was there to protect his community.
Right.
And I think over the course of time and just conversation, right, we could agree to disagree, but he always stayed focused on what was important about how we stitch these communities together. And then we're always going to agree on approach, but as long as we keep marching forward, and he spent a lot of time thinking about those bridges and how we kind of rebuild these communities, and ultimately for all of us, I think he became our friend, right? Because we always collectively stayed focused, and I think it's such a strong strong symbolism of not only the role he played, but I think the bridges he built, the ideals he represented and the role side of that. And also held us all accountable, right, which was really important. I mean, I can't remember a meeting after 2C passed that he wasn't saying, all right, Mr. Lee, how are we doing? Are we delivering on our promises, right? So,
Yeah, he might start out contentious, but he saw the opportunity for what it would do for the neighborhood in the community.
and he was not shy, as we all know, to take on some fellow community members to remind them of,
Right.
let's stay focused on the bigger picture. So we owe a lot to John.
The last event that he attended was when Secretary Buttigieg was on our campus here a couple of months ago. And John showed up and, everybody was trying to get their 2 seconds with the secretary and get a picture or whatever. And we introduced the secretary to John and I think they talked for 15 minutes. It was fascinating conversation. The secretary was very interested in what John had to say, and John was, of course, very articulate and passionate and clear, and obviously a stakeholder in the community. It was a neat moment that he was so respected that way.
So bravo to him and to Bill, or Buck Hutchinson as well. So if I get a bench for my 15-month-old yellow Labrador retriever,
Yeah.
like, she could come sit on that bench sometime.
Absolutely.
They bring her to a meeting and we vote on.
The plaque is gonna say Daisy the crackhead. And first thing she's gonna do is pee on her bench, so maybe I'll wait on that.
We might work on the line up there. We'll work with you on that.
We'll get back to
All right. Now we're called to order. Good enough. We have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. So leads. Second. Moved and seconded and voted. Everybody in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting? Aye. Any? Good show. I don't have anything other than what we just talked about for a chair report, and John didn't have anything after I spoke with him last evening, so we'll go straight into CEO report if you please. Yep.
Did we figure out who the NWC board square was? We do have one person online that hasn't entered their name in yet. That one right there. Unless it's one of us, I'm not on there, so it's not me. Because occasionally I ask who it is and it's me.
Well, I need to find that.
Yeah, we will here shortly. Next slide, please. So this board meeting is all about facilities, so I'm not gonna do a lot here. We will. Rob Brown says, "I am the eagle."
We'll rename.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks, Rob. So this, as we do each month, we have a facilities, events, or community focus. This board meeting is about focused on facilities, and we'll be going into a number of things here and subsequent agenda items. Next slide, please. It's been exciting around here. We had Electrify next year last weekend. Over 6,000 people. It was a really successful event. It was a hot son of a gun. It's over 100 degrees both days. And they actually did better on attendance than they expected. This will be an annual event. They're in 3 or 4 other major US cities. And they, their events have grown each year in those other cities. So we're excited about that partnership, but went really well. And the other events are listed there. Coming up, NoFX is this coming weekend. This will be the largest event we've had here on the campus, 2 days, looking around 7,000 a day. And so lots of action. They're setting up the stage in the arch right now, massive stage.
Talk about the parking for 7.
Yep, Joe, you want to talk about parking?
Yes, I do. It's a topic, but we have worked with partners to make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page. Jen's been liaisoning the information that's going out. we're gonna be closing down National Western, for most through traffic. There will be some that'll be allowed through. That's to kind of keep that clear. And it's also was a pinch point for people getting out last year. So we're trying to resolve that ahead of time and not have that issue happen from a previous show. And then we're also gonna be using over here at WSSA's parking lot. So we worked with Paul's team. We're gonna be working that over there with Argus to be doing all our parking over there. We have Coliseum on the back burner, but the numbers aren't saying that we're gonna need to engage over there right now, so we're not intending to do that, but.
Some of the people's money cars.
Yeah, so we're planning right around 2,000 maybe-ish. This is a beer drinking event as well, so we're anticipating a lot more Ubers, train, ridership on the commuter rail and things like that. So we have a lot of transition signage that'll get people over here and back, but this is a high share ride event. So it's a hard balance to exactly say what 8,000 people equal.
Right.
But using the numbers that we've gotten from AEG and previous shows, that's what and we actually had some input from WSSA as well, that this looks, we should be sitting well with where we're at,
Where's the Uber drop
over on that side of.
over next to
We're mimicking exactly how
the
they do it over there. And then we are using some of our lots over on this side as well, so we will be filled on both sides.
And we're opening up Marion Underpass.
Yeah. Yep, and we have the flaggers and everybody in place for that to make sure everybody stays where they're supposed to be.
Thanks.
And then, it's busy here. August is a busy month and that's a good thing. So lots of, exciting event stuff going on and continue to have really strong bookings into 25 and most notably 26 for the opening of the livestock.
I know I shouldn't ask, but what the heck is the bovine respiratory symposium? Is that?
What? You don't have your tickets to that
I
yet?
don't yet. I go yet. I'm a little remiss.
It's just their type of organization that's what they focus on, so they're just doing, it's respiratory and bovine, like that is their thing. I can't go deep into it because I don't thoroughly know that organization myself, but they're committed to talk about all things.
Is it
thoroughly
big?
in their
How many
organization.
people?
I don't know that right off the top of my head. I think we're a couple hundred. It's not a monster event, but this is a very aligned event for us. So we're excited to have them on
Yeah,
campus.
totally.
Joe, how much of what percentage of the events that you have either now or prospectively in the next year, whatever, have fallen out of the sky? People recognize the value of the facilities and the access and everything else that is an asset for them, an opportunity for them, versus how much have we targeted specific event leaders or companies or individuals or whatever that are gonna want to take part of this? I ask that in the context of thematic continuity or consistency with what the overall vision of the property is versus how much are we doing to make as much money as we can to offset overhead.
I think there's a lot to that. We've had we're taking a lot of leads in right now, so it's not that there's a ton of groups that are necessarily seeing the alignment, but we do have that going on. There are a good handful of groups who have seen that this works with what they're doing and or it's going to in the future. They're trying to align that way. We've had a big shift of, when we're talking future out with LVC, that's more of, there's shifts going on from convention center to over here to over there. So there's a shuffle going on and kind of a bigger playing field of people trying to lock in their positions right now with here. I think they do see an alignment with over here as well, with lots of those as well, just through their own lenses. It's not necessarily our missions. When we're talking about just, water or some of those, it is public shows and it is aligned with, home and garden shows and things like that. We also have a very intent marketing push and efforts that we're about to turn the page on that is talking more to what maybe you're speaking to, which is the mission, vision, those kinds of conventions, regional shows, stuff like that, that are very aligned with what we're doing on campus. And we are kind of getting our bearings now where we can push on those and start to reach out to those organizations and get them. And most of what we're getting right now is either groups that have been, we have leads that come to us from different ways. We're getting those leads and we're shopping those leads. So once they come here, a lot of those groups want to come back. We have a big amount of that to see that they're excited to be here, whether it's entertainment, whether it's, you know, whatever their desire is to be here, but did that answer your question entirely, or did I answer? on that
I think what you're seeing right there is what we see. That's a good sort of cross section of what we see. There's 2 ag events in there, there's a couple community events in there, some sports events, there's music events, there's an expo, there's a symposium. That is a pretty good snapshot cross section of the kind of things we see on our overall list. Next month or in September, and I'll be talking about this, we were not gonna jump ahead here, we're not gonna be having an August board meeting, but we'll be meeting in September, we'll be going over events. We will show the entire calendar at the next board meeting. But would you say, Joe? I mean, that's a pretty fair snapshot of what the whole calendar is looking like.
But it'd be neat to see if we can combine some of those events too. I mean, like Denver Dumb Friends League. All my friends are dumb. I think they would be really great with the two you kind of meld those two
And
constituents together. I don't know.
I mean, there is some thought process between events happening naturally, that they're just kind of cohesively seeing some, what you're talking about. And we try to push things that might make sense to align. We try to cut that a couple of times. Some have been successful, some have not been successful.
And Joe, are you pretty pleased, at least at this point, with your revenue performance with these events?
Yeah, I mean, of the actual events that are coming through, some, it just depends on the event. So we know going into some of these that we're not going to be big money makers, but they're more mission aligned. And then we have other ones that are doing better on revenue. We're hoping that those kind of continue to fill in there, but in general, I think we're performing well.
It's nice that you get to look at both.
Yeah, we need to, we have a big push in the second half of this year to meet some goals and that we have out there, but right now, per event. What we're getting is doing well.
Joe, do you think, organizationally, I don't know what the right time frame might be, say 2 years from now, when campus itself is more prominent in people's minds, they're looking to seek venues to facilitate their events. Is part of the goal to say no to things that are not part of the mission? Whether or not it makes money, quote unquote, makes money, is it more important brand wise to have a consistent kind of flow of events when you get to a place where you already have a consistent income and you can really forecast what that income looks like? Do you think in the future you would do Invicta in 2031 if campus is humming? Do we really need that imagery on here?
Right. It's a good question. We talk about that a lot internally. I think we're going to be having to have a lot of activity on here for a long time. So bringing on the next new building, bringing on the next new building, even though there'll be a lot going on with it, we'll still have a lot of business that we need to fill into there. So I think that may not be a 2-year out type thing, but there will be a point where we are more selective, and hopefully what leads to that is that we have bigger groups that are coming in and taking up more space and activating it in a more cohesive way with the campus type thing. Those usually sit longer. If they sit longer, then we're not filling in little stuff all over the place. But I do think that's going to be hard to forecast when that piece can turn. Ideally, we'd like to kind of be able to have that ability to push back on some things and say it's not gonna, that's not really where we're at. We do run into the fact that we are still a part of the city asset and stuff like that, and we do have to follow guidelines that we cannot necessarily turn things away just due to our opinion. We have to be very cognizant about what is the reason that that's happening for.
But you do bring up a good point. There's a compatibility issue of certain groups that are here together and conflict and, I mean, good point.
There are some categories though that are banned by the framework. Yes, correct. Everyone.
Those meetings.
Yeah, adult entertainment, marijuana, those things are not occurring.
Next slide, please.
Tip community outreach, continuing with our monthly CAC meeting, our community benefits committee meeting, and then I'm attending the monthly Denver North Business Association meeting. We have a couple of events that are coming up. Backpack School started back on August 15th. But Focus Points is partnering with Swansea Rec Center. They're doing their backpack giveaway on August 3rd. Actually geared towards young, early ECE, and I think up to 10 years old, so not older school kids, which I thought was kind of interesting. But that's their focus. That's on August 3rd. We'll be supporting that event. And then Birdseed Collective is going to be distributing over 400 backpacks in the Globeville community on August the 10th. And again, very grateful to the SSA group. They're a huge sponsor of that backpack giveaway. Birdseed will be doing a summer concert. I believe it's the 3rd Saturday in August. I just need to confirm that. I haven't seen anything for that yet. That's their plan. Some other outreach, we just completed some small group conversations with community members related to the community space, the proposed community space as part of the equestrian center. So we had a really robust, Steve and I had a really robust conversation with the DeNovo, the Denver North Business Association Board, and a couple of other business leaders last week. Tuesday, we met with the nonprofit organizations and rec centers and libraries at Tepeyac Health Center and had a robust conversation with them. We met with community members. Thank you, Sandra, for all your help getting neighbors to our residential community conversation, which was on Tuesday night at the Johnson Rec Center. And then we hosted several of those individuals as well as our task force members and did a tour yesterday of the actual sites with barriers or cones so the community could visually see the two proposed spaces. It was very informative. And I know that visual really helped community members look at the two sites. And then we hosted a robust community conversation with them last night as well. In addition to some one-on-one coffees that Steve and I have had over the past couple of weeks with community leaders. So it was really, it's been a really great couple of weeks having conversations with the community. Monday, if anybody's going, Mayor Johnston's State of the City address is at Paramount Theater. If you need to reserve VIP seat, let me know, I can help you with that. And then we're gonna begin planning for the annual trunk or treat event, which will be it'll be in October, just not sure which date. And then I'm beginning to identify sponsors, so that we can distribute, free tickets to community as part of the 2025 stock show. So.
Jessica's gonna do an update on procurements here later, so I'll skip that. We have a new staff member, Desiree Dixon, starting on Monday. This person's really interfacing between campus and facilities and events. That's a big piece of what these buildings need to be set up for each of these events, and starting to think through how that's gonna work for the livestock center as well. So I mentioned today is facilities. NUCO will be doing their deep dive presentation today, their report on progress on the campus. And then going forward, we will not be having an August board meeting. Chairman Eichert and I met a couple weeks ago talking about this. We always have a hard time getting a forum for August, and already know there's a problem for next month, and so that will be our calendar. 10 board meetings a year, no meeting in August, no meeting in January during stock show. I think that is it, other than I wanted to put this up for John and we appreciate the conversation we had today. We will be sorely missed in this community and around our table discussions with the neighbors.
Good deal. Anybody have any questions for Brad? Marcy? What are you doing?
Are you belly up here? Hey, buddy. It's been a little while. Good to see you all. Mike is out of the office today, so you get me for the deep dive. I don't know how deep it is. It's only about 3 months old since we've seen you guys last time, so I'll go as deep as I can. Here's just a recent area of the site. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Riverfront Open Space Art and Livestock Center. But something you guys might not have heard of or know of is the BESS. And that is the Battery Energy Storage System. And that is, Excel is running that construction project and they are mobilizing that. They're just waiting for a signature permit or something to get started, but it is really right on the south side of the cup. Excel is gonna come in and place the batteries. And then afterwards, they do some of the initial connections and then it will eventually connect over to the ATO. And then they will, enclose it, the battery in a steel structure. It's like 8 feet tall and it'll look and feel just like the cup. So it'll look just like it and it'll connect and that'll be the battery storage. The best system for the livestock center and for the cup. That will be got that done by the end of the year. I know the ATO is on order. So when that comes out, gets sent, and the ATO sits, right by the stockyards, event center, the bison pens, you know, where the little electrical area is, that's where the ATO is going to sit. But there's also some connectivity that Excel will have to do, a connection to under Marion Underpass and over on Betty Graham Drive. So there's just a little bit of work, and you'll see Excel out there in that area and need to get some approvals from Metro to be able to do some staging and stuff on their easement there. So any questions about that?
We, just to add, Marcy, we are on the south facade, south wall of the BESS. It is a really good signage spot, so there will be a very large National Western Center logo, kind of entry signage, interim entry signage. You probably also saw coming in, if you noticed, some of the big, big signage that you got installed this week, so.
I did not see that. Try it again.
Yeah.
Where is it?
146 National Western Drive, one's just as you're pulling in here to the LED lot. There's another one up at 51st and another one at Race Court. Big 4-lane orange suckers. And then, well, it's
Must have
good.
been singing too loud. Or rushing to get from the traffic, so. I was looking for those. It's very cool. Yeah, that's a great location for the best. So again, we hope Excel will get that in by the end of the year and forward. Yeah, so next slide. The Livestock Center, that is still moving forward. The pictures are a little less exciting, but maybe you can kind of exciting for you guys. See a little bit of the legacy there. The roofing, the steel in the roof is substantially complete. And then you can start to see, you can't see here, but some of the plaza work is underway, and same with, you'll see some of the painting here on the east side against that rail wall. If you want to go to the next slide. Let's see, metal panels on the north are continuing, be complete in the next couple of weeks. I talked about the plaza utilities. You have the pouring concrete along those paving walls, the arena, the MEPs are continuing, the acoustic baffles are being installed. I don't know what those are, where those are in that picture, but I believe they are there up. But you can also see over the club, it's closed over in that area, so that's kind of cool, the overhang. The low voltage is continuing, obviously lots of CMU work. If those of you who've been inside this building, there's block everywhere. You can be eaten by as much as this building, so it's pretty cool. And then we continue to coordinate those tours. We're taking on the authorities. We've got some of their sales team comes in, but we've got WCSA staff coming in. I know I've got some from John Ellis and some of your other events. We've got some staff from CSU, et cetera, in addition to some of the larger tours with just outside sources and some city officials and things like that. So they'll continue to be fun. It's getting very busy inside. We'll definitely have more trades. I'm on site coming in the next couple of months. It's just really start getting to the interior work is where you start getting a lot of spaces. So it's going to get even more busy and crowded inside as we continue forward, but she's looking good. Next slide. This is just a view of the expo hall. You can see the shiny polished floor and the hangers and stuff, lots of stuff in there. So next slide. Want me to go louder?
Not just have you sit up straighter.
Oh.
A little bit more volume.
Like my mom also.
Concerned about all.
Yeah.
It's good for the back, right?
Speaking 101, Riverfront art by Matthew Montezeta. Here's the latest aerial of the site. You see the pad is in, and the barn is in fabrication. So that's what we are waiting for, all the steel pieces to be fabricated, put together and get out here on site and get that puppy up. Again, we're still tracking for that to be, Arts and Venues is actually running that project, tracking for that to be complete, this fall, so.
Is that canopy fabric?
I don't think so.
I think it's metal.
I think it's gonna be metal, and the canopy part is where the artist is incorporating the community art. So I'm not sure if he has actually contracted with the community artists to do that piece of the work yet, or if that is coming as he gets fabricated, he gets some of the community artists involved, that there's been some outreach and such to that, get them involved to really start putting that piece together. And I'm not sure if it's gonna look exactly like that. It could be similar. This is just a rendition of what it could look like up there, if not to the GES community. But it's gonna be like the Instagrammable space, you know, the swings move, there's gonna be beautiful lighting. And there'll be just a few fun across the street from the equestrian center. What could be cooler? Next slide.
Marcy, are those, benches metal?
I don't know.
I just had a thought that,
You want them to be metal or not?
well, if they're metal and if they could be removed by simply cutting a couple of chains. Those look like something that
Would walk away.
would be a flight risk for a recycling facility across the river. I don't know if that's I mean, they make them, but let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I had not thought of that.
Kind of like, you know, the sheep bridge and the climbing,
Like,
like that.
well, and we are having trouble on the campus with anything metal that can be disconnected, you know, and then sold for recycling.
That's right.
Not just in the campus, also in the neighborhood. So there's a lot of people stealing a bunch of metal from everywhere. It's
And that would be a nice heavy hunk of.
Change.
Yeah.
Cha-ching right
Yeah.
there.
I have a question, about that also. When you decided who was gonna win the artist or whatever, do you check all the safety with, I'm thinking about children, how it looks and everything, and if it's gonna be metal. And then there's ¿cómo se dice? Cemento. There, the swings, and I mean, there's nothing to protect children. That's how I see it.
I'm gonna Go back one slide. Yes, they definitely, the design does have to meet certain requirements, and a lot of them are ADA requirements, which can also help with child safety as far as kind of running into the bars. And I think there is a standard and a code where some of these things, since Denver is building this.
This is being permitted as a structure going through the building department, so it has to meet all of those safety codes. You mentioned these angles are coming out, which are called head knockers. And so there's an ADA curve below, for someone that,
The bumpers, yeah, you call.
yeah, so to indicate that there's a head knocker above. Beyond that, I don't know if there was a child safety lens here, but it is meeting the building code.
And benches appear to be wood. They do this rendering.
Yeah, they are, yeah. What the final harvest left in our was, I'm not sure, but I'll definitely ask, and Sandra, I'll ask too about the some child safety pieces and what do they do as far as like the chains, you know, you can think of like little fingers and the chains, and they're probably similar to playground swings, there's probably a standard there, so, but I'll check on some of that for us. Those are good questions. Just a quick update on the U.S. Department of Transportation infrastructure grant that the program received. Our team is working weekly, sometimes many times a week, negotiating with the FHWA on a grant agreement, and within that grant agreement, dictates kind of, you know, when the funding comes, but also the schedule. So when that we don't have a, you know, a firm schedule on all these pieces and when they start to go and when we get that kind of cash in hand and with the city matching things like that. So those are all things that are just being discussed right in the grant agreement phase. And then we are also in the middle of the NEPA process. So as you know, it's an important process to get through early and get that done. But the plans are still moving forward, say for on the pedestrian bridge, our team is still actively coordinating with the railroads. That design is progressing, the Betty Cram Bridge and the 48th Avenue Greenway, that's, you know, part of one build with Dottie. So those, the 48th Avenue, in particular, the Greenway, does have a path forward. I think they're starting later this year on some of the levee work. Actually, no, they're starting later this year. They're starting in October because that's when low flow season starts. So they'll start that levee work here in October, and then the rest of those kind of fall into place based on construction sequencing. Let's see, any questions on the grant? Cool, next slide. We mentioned this last month, but if you guys remember, in March, Mayor Johnston had a tour with GES community leaders in the coalition and made a commitment to move the triangle forward in a community process there. So we're getting there, you know, so by the end of the year, and we're kind of smack in the middle of this year. So if you have the next slide. What we, this is all in anticipation of the scenario planning that we anticipate starting later this fall. And the scenario planning is to start the triangle process. And what does that new site plan look like? What are the public facilities? What are the land use? What does that environmental cleanup look like? What are the different community ownership models and the community benefit opportunities on that parcel there? So next slide. But to get to the scenario process, we want to have good engagement from the community. You know, kind of looking back to Kelly, what you know did in the early phases of, and Paul too. The project is really getting that community engaged, and we know that there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of opportunities here in Triangle. So we are working with the mayor's office and the mayor's outreach team specifically at how we can make sure that process, the planning or the outreach process is inclusive in the entire community. So we have put forward a call to action. If you guys have that in your emails, great. If not, I have this handout that you see on the right. We are looking to create a work group. So we put out a call for interest for those who want to join this work group. It is for people who live and work in the GES community. We're thinking of getting something around like 7 to 9 people together in this work group to help us create the outreach plan. What are the best times to meet? Where to meet? How to meet? You know, can we plug into existing meetings that are already in this community? There's a lot going on. Washington Street's going to be under construction. There's obviously some more, you know, private development happening all you know, around the community as well. How can we not add one more meeting to the calendar, or how can we get people? We need them. So the outcome of this short work group process, we think it's about you know, 3 to 4 meetings, about a month's worth of work, and we'll come out with an outreach plan, and that outreach plan then becomes the implementation for that scenario planning. So you'll see that out and around, and thanks to the authority for helping circulate this call for interest to the forum to their community, and we've been pushing out. We've been meeting with you know, rec centers and schools and folks in the area to get some interest, and we're getting quite a bit of interest. Actually, we've got 13 people who have actively signed up, and we're keeping this open until August 2nd, and we can extend it if we need to, but things are looking really good, and then we'll get going with that process. Mr. What is the next process? What do you?
I was just gonna ask Anthony if you could give us, kind of take the temperature of the community. A year ago, it was challenging at best, and today it kind of feels like we've got a partnership going. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the ideal partnership. That doesn't mean we agree all the time, but at least we behave as partners. Where are we today? Or because this is a big deal, and if we're going to have conflict again, Good to know now.
Yeah, I mean, tabling at events, it's still an educational process with community members that they still don't know a lot about the campus, so we're trying to provide information to them. The interesting thing that, if there's nothing wrong, then we don't hear from them. It's only when they're frustrated. I would say that certainly over these past couple of weeks and months, they've been engaged, so I mean, probably a set is 7. I mean, we're not hearing. You know, it was interesting at the community meeting that we had at Johnson Rec Center on a Tuesday night. Community is still frustrated that they don't have sidewalks. Community is still frustrated either that the connectivity isn't there, and it's important. Connection to the site, connection to the community as a whole. But what I've learned in that process is not to, the response to be that, not us. Right? It's just most important to listen to them and let them vent their frustrations. At the meeting on Tuesday night, they were asking for a sidewalk map. We're like, we're happy to, provide one to you. You know, Dottie has created one, but rather than go to the website and find it, it's like, you let us send that to you, right? So that's where we hear is just their frustration. That's the frustration that comes up. I would say the past few weeks, the conversations have been positive. Because they're seeing that there's gonna be community space on this campus for them. At least, within their, who operates it, who manages that space, we're not there yet, but that kind of came up a little bit as well. I mean, I would definitely say that the nonprofits and the rec centers and the library, those entities that we work with, I mean, they're fully on board and very supportive of us and everything that we're doing. And it's not necessarily because we're sponsoring their events, but it's because they do view us as a partner. But yeah, I mean, I would say a 7. I would, it has moved from when I started, July 5th was 2 years for me in this role. But I've been in this community for the past 5. And so the temperature, it escalates with their frustration around services, but it's services we don't provide.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And Marcy, I'm curious, I don't need names or anything, but I'm curious to know if you got the same participation, or maybe you got some fresh blood on that.
We do have a lot of new names on that list and a few that we know. So it was really exciting to see. And I think there's 5 those names are never heard before. So really cool to be able to see that. And we're looking for a really diverse mix. So that's not just filled up with one organization. We want a mom or a dad, somebody who has kids, because reaching them is obviously different, right? 5 o'clock meeting, the kids at 5, and then you got bath time, and then you got to get the littles to bed and things like that. So we're really just trying to be thoughtful and hoping that they can help us identify different ways to reach folks. And we want this Try and Go remote to look different and feel different, because it's different thought process than say the previous ones. And we think that this is already looks and feels a little bit different, and more collaborative and more inclusive and more community led. So I think we're real hopeful.
So that's a good segue to my question. I mean, obviously, once these folks are identified, what does that onboarding process look like? Because you want them, I mean, obviously, you want that blend of different perspectives, but at the same time, there's a lot of work. I go back to 2C, a lot of planning work that was done, right? That for a large portion of this area to find, be it the conversion of the Wolverine into a food hall, or obviously we still need a larger replacement arena. Coliseum, we need right? There are things kind of nuts and boltsy sort of things. So what does that process look like?
Absolutely, and that's where we're sort of working to build the first agenda. That's sort of something I've been working on this week, and I actually might ping you for some ideas. But part of there is that information sharing, that onboarding piece of, and that needs to happen at this community group, but it also needs to happen at the beginning of the scenario planning of what is this project, what has happened before, what are the framework agreement requirements. There's definitely pieces there that I think need to, and that's definitely meeting number one is that level setting and bringing people up to making sure we're all working from the same set of knowledge, really. And, as well as governance piece too. We'll have a bit about governance in this first thing. There will be a stipend for the folks. Everybody who's part of this work group will receive a stipend and again, the governance. And part of one of the requirements that we're asking folks to be on this work group is, are you willing to share what you learn and what you hear and what you know with your neighbors and with other community members, and even if your opinion differs from your own. And making sure just having folks out there sharing that information, because there's so much history. And it's so important to making sure that the next phases of the triangle, I think, are really successful. Because the dominoes again are, that people don't necessarily know that piece, with the frustrating and some of these other elements. So it's just important to make sure people know.
Yeah, because I just, there are parcels within that defined area that were purchased with QC money, right?
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we're being realistic. I mean, I understand the sensitivity of the discussion, right? But we also need to remind folks, right? I'm channeling my John Zappi here, promises made, promises kept, right? That we're balancing those needs for the context.
And maybe, part of our, that first meeting too is having some guest speakers like yourselves, to come in and talk about that history piece too. So it's not just people remembering, it's people who lived in.
Deidre, one closing comment that I wanted to share, also our community advisory committee, since I started, the membership has doubled. It's still, it's about 20, but it's, when we started, the numbers were lower and they were frustrated with each other, but they continue to come on a monthly basis and we keep adding people.
Yeah,
So,
hopefully that trend continues.
Yes.
It's never good when you have the same group of 4 or 5 absolutely. What's the word I want to use? Air quotes representing the community. That's not enough to be adequately representative. So that's good news.
Any other questions? I think that was my last.
Good show. Anybody have any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so, do you know all these people that are registering, if they're from the neighborhood? If they're residents or their businesses in the neighborhood? And then do you have a number of how many are from Globeville, Swansea, Adelia?
I haven't looked up like addresses to see which areas, but I know that all but 2 live in the 216.
And just to be clear, this is the group that's gonna plan the process. It's not the process.
Plan out outreach for that.
Yes.
So yeah, and then the process of going through the scenario planning will be similar to like a master planning, right? Or placemaking where you look in what can go here, what are the uses on this area, what has to be in one area, what can this be, what are some limitations for this? If you start to look at like the Colson parking lot things, there's limitations on all these things. Some things can't go certain places, and so that process becomes more robust and very detailed.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. Great, thank you.
Anyone else with any questions or comments for Marcy? Jocelyn, I know, thank you, by the way. Jocelyn, I know we've got most of your material in the packet. Do you want to add any comments to that, or do you have any other things?
I don't need to add anything other than a thank you to those of you who've been helping me get our House Bill 1344 report out the door. It goes to the city every year as a requirement of that legislation that passed back in 2015 that provided the funding for the sport campus. So for those of you who've been giving updates to me so that I can send them along to the state, I appreciate your time. Otherwise, I will let our report stand as submitted unless Tony has anything he'd like to add.
Bill, anything else from you on CSU? No, okay, good show. Oh, do you have a, Doug's had a hard stop, do you have a hard stop?
Yeah, no, I don't. I have one well, I gotta be out here by 11, but I only have one thing to add on the stock show report that I didn't talk about, and that is, I just want to commend Brad and Steve Nally over here for taking us through a very efficient equestrian center design process. And it's more efficient than we did the first time, I can tell you that. We are way more aligned. The building is going to be way better. And the inflow, ingress, egress are going to be significantly improved over what we were about to do. The Populous design, nothing against Populous, I'm just saying, we have improved it and you two guys should be really happy. I know Steve, you've been shepherding, the heavy lifting there, so thank you. So anyway, we're excited about where we're heading on that equestrian center, Steve, and we are excited the way the process is happening. So that was my only addition.
Good deal. Any questions for Paul?
Is that true for CSU too? Jocelyn?
I'm sorry.
Is what Paul said true for CSU too, in terms of going back and forth from the equestrian center?
Apologize, Paul.
That's okay.
Marcy asked me a question, and I didn't hear any of that. So I will just own up that Marcy.
Just say
and I
yes.
were at the
Just say yes. Just say yes.
I got bad meeting attendees, and they'll call me out, and so now I'm here to admit to you that I didn't hear that, so please tell me.
All we talked about was, I think the process for the design on the equestrian center is really going well. And so Bill's question was, are you supporting?
There were concerns about how the
Yes.
equestrian center
Yeah.
related to your facilities, and I was just asking, is the positive nature of what Paul just commented on true? for CSU?
Yes, and we had the folks from our vet school that are the equine experts, the ones who are doing sports medicine and will continue to work on the programming down here, have provided comments on the basis of design this week. Obviously, we always have our eye on that movement of horses pieces. It would always be better to be able to move the horses from as short a distance as possible, but we also understand there are other design considerations and there are ways to move them back and forth, so.
Thanks for your, thanks for your recognition of your three cerebral vacancy pattern.
I mean, I'm not gonna admit any other cerebral vacancy. When required.
Yeah.
Apologies all.
Show.
Yeah. got it, Marcy.
Sandra and Caroline, sigue. Gusto verla.
So,
Hey, everybody. I just have a couple of save the dates for you. September 7th from 1 to 4 p.m. is going to be the Tepeyac Block Party. That's going to be over at Tepeyac on the street there. So if the National Western wanted to get involved with that, there should be opportunities to have like a tent, a booth. Last year, there was a whole bunch of organizations. I think we had the Museum of Nature and Science, we had the library, there was food, there were drinks. It was really a fun event. So I encourage everybody to save that in your calendars. And the next one is going to be October 3rd, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. It's the Legacy of Health Gala, Tepeyac's big fundraising event. It's going to be held at the Seawell Grand Ballroom. Again, that one is another really, really fun event. I've been a couple times now, always a good time. There's a nice dinner. It's a nice socialization event. There's usually a really fun performance as well. So go ahead and mark off those dates in your calendar because I'm hoping to see all of you there. That's about it I have though.
Good deal. Thank you, Sandra.
yes, so today there's a summer event at Johnson's Rec Center from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. July 20th, there's the summer series from Versa Collective from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Last month, they had their first, I think, or their second, but they had carnitas, so they were giving a lot of tacos, free tacos with carnitas, and that was popular. There was so good. Anyways, at the stand, there's a neighborhood block party about this library. And then August, I know we have August 10, or you already mentioned that backpack at Versa Collective. That's August 10th. And then we're planning our next Sabor Comunitario dinner on August 12th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at CSU Square. We're still planning. Also, we have our Yankees Open Air Market is in Staff Charles Event Center from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we're still working hard. We're trying to get sponsors, vendors. And most of that funding is going to DGS and partners to our programs. So if you want to sponsor our events, please let me know. We have 3 different packages. I can send them to you. Councilman Watson, he already sponsored us with the luchador package. So, you're welcome to sponsor us. That's it.
Any questions for Caroline or Sandra? Hearing none. Nicole, is Nicole on board?
I think she had to step out 9:45 to 10:15, so.
Steven?
The second quarter financial report was included in your board book. We're halfway through the fiscal year already. I'm happy to say we're underspent on expenses in the budget in professional services as well as significantly underspent on contractual services, and that will help pressure on the personnel line due to hiring some of our new staff earlier than we originally budgeted. As Brad mentioned, we have our 15th staff member joining us on Monday, so that's 4 new hires this year. On average, they bring in excess of 12 years, up to 20 years of professional relevant experience. So our continued ability to attract, develop, and retain top talent is phenomenal for the team. On the revenue side, although we're almost 300%, thanks to Joe's leadership, ahead of where we were a year ago on event revenue, in my opinion, we will fall short of budget at the end of the year by several $100,000. We're single digits on ticketing, we're single digits on food and beverage year to date. And I think the gap is insurmountable at this point, but there is a significant pipeline being built for 25 and 20, even 26, and significant effort being put forth for the rest of this year on closing that gap. Lastly, thanks to Steve's efforts on the equestrian center, which were mentioned earlier, we received our first invoice from the partner in excess of $400,000. And with the support of Steve getting it approved and our partners at the City Department of Finance reimbursing us, within a week of receiving and approving that, we received the reimbursement from the city and paid the partner. So that process is set up, and that was a good first test, and it's going to work phenomenally well. So thanks to Steve for that. Any questions about our first half financial performance? I'm happy to answer.
Anyone? Jessica?
Okay, so Campus Services and Partnerships Committee, this month's meeting was canceled. One quick update, we have a ticketing RFP drafted. We're just making some final touches and we're looking to issue that soon. I'll talk more about that scope during my procurement update here in a bit.
Good deal, thank you. And Ernest's not here. We need to cover anything, or do you want to speak on his behalf?
No reports in the packet.
Good show. Jenna?
This feels odd to share my own presentation.
Jenna, can I tee this up just a little bit
Please,
here?
yeah.
So, this is another component that we've been talking basically all this year about our work plan and our process in preparing for 2026. And one of those components is marketing and communication and branding. We've tried to leverage earned media and things like that, find inexpensive ways of accomplishing our goals around branding and communications for the campus. Jenna has been working on a very thoughtful rollout for how this leads up to 2026. So this is yet another component of how we are preparing for 2026, whether it is events operations, facilities operations, staffing, finance, all those components have their own work stream And just wanted to set the table for where this piece fits in.
Yes, thank you, Brad. I'm really excited to share this information with you guys today, because I think we're at a really pivotal point from a marketing communications standpoint. Up until this point, you guys have probably noticed we use a lot of conceptual drawings and renderings to market this campus. We're finally at a point where we can show reality. So we're really kind of transferring from concept to reality, and we're gonna be pinpointing now what we've been working on and showcasing all the progress that we've been making over the past couple years. So when we're thinking about strategic goals, you know, I think one of the biggest hurdles we have to overcome is building awareness surrounding the National Western Center. Of course, you know, the National Western Stock Show has been around for 100+ years, so they are well established in our community, but as the center, we have some work to do. You know, when we host people for tours and for events and things of that nature, I can't tell you the amount of times people come out here and say, wow, I had no idea all of this was out here. So that to me is indicative that we have some work to do on the marketing and branding side. We also significantly need to grow our engagement, so social media following, our website visits. We also need to communicate our value to our customers, which I think ultimately will prompt action in the form of leads and sales. And it will also attract new and returning event attendees. So when thinking about who we're trying to target when reaching out to these folks, you know, I would argue our target market is really anyone and everyone. We want, you know, this is an inclusive campus and we want to draw everyone to it to enjoy. Although over the next couple of years, I think it's pivotal that we really hone in and focus on both the event programmers to drive business and sales and ultimately revenue, but also really focus in on drumming up some excitement for the event goers and make people want to be a part of, for example, the NoFX show that's coming here this weekend. Like, how can we appeal to some different demographics to draw them into buying tickets and attending these types of events? And then, of course, you know, our project is super unique and we're really, I think, in my opinion, very lucky to have some incredible stakeholders. You know, we have tremendous support through the new administration in the mayor's office, also on Denver City Council. And we have tremendous partners at NewCo, CSU, and Stock Show. So I think, you know, we can really utilize them as brand ambassadors as well, and really try to unify our messaging across the board. So kind of what I've planned is like a thematic sequence over the next couple of years. 2024 is pretty pivotal in that we are really using this year to build our arsenal of content, if you will. We don't really have much of a meaningful advertising budget for this year, so I'm really utilizing this as an opportunity as kind of some downtime to really build some incredible content that we can then launch next year and ideally put some ad dollars behind it. And that is precisely what we're going to be doing in 25, is really cultivating that awareness and putting, you know, an ad campaign out there, a paid ad campaign, which I'll go through a little bit more in depth here in just a minute. And then in 26, ideally, is when we'll harvest that crop and really kind of check on our ROI, reevaluate if needed, and kind of measure our metrics. So just want to dig into this a little bit more. I already kind of mentioned this, but 2024 is really the year of building content and investing in our relationships. Brad mentioned it as well. Since we don't have a meaningful ad budget this year, how can we really take advantage of some of the things that we're already doing? So our memberships with the Downtown Denver Partnership, Visit Denver, the Chamber, things, you know, things of that nature that we're already out and doing. I think it's really important that we get in front of the business community, and it is clear to both Brad and I that the message is getting out there, probably just not as broadly and as frequently as we would like. So I'm kind of sending Brad on a roadshow of sorts this fall. And then we really want to do some individualized industry outreach. So we're planning tentatively an industry open house for later this year, where we will bring in a lot of DMCs or destination management groups, which are the people that are hired to book, you know, corporate conferences and holiday parties and things of that nature. That's one area that we haven't really infiltrated yet. So it'll be a great opportunity for us to get out and explain to them our vision and mission, but also bring some excitement to not only the Stockyards Event Center, but a lot of the other venues that we have coming online. And then lastly, this year, I'm really focused on market research, so kind of just doing some testing on social media, with a little bit of advertising dollars, just to see kind of what is sticking with people, what messaging is working, what concepts are causing people to click through and visit our website or spend more time with us. So it's really kind of a moment of research and, kind of discovering what we'll do for next year. So comms and marketing is an interesting, much like finance, it touches every aspect and every department within our organization. So I would argue there's lots of different focus areas within our plan. And I think probably most importantly this year is our event and sales marketing. So we're really evaluating our sales materials. We're trying to create some new pitch pieces. We tout our efforts a lot around being a sustainable organization. So how are we creating digital pieces that can be emailed to people rather than mailing and printing, these large packets and things of that nature. And then, we just made a pretty sizable investment into some new venue photography, and it came back just spectacular. Those are the photos that you see on the left. But we can't tell a story without good content, so I think this will really help us a lot in that storytelling effort. But also, we need to brand. We need to brand build and make people aware of what we're doing here. So we're building those assets for 25 deployment. As I mentioned, we're doing market research. We are making some small changes to our website to make it a little bit more events focused and events driven. And then, as Brad mentioned, we have been focused on storytelling, but mostly from an earned media perspective, because we just haven't had sizable dollars to really invest in that. Anthony and I have been working super closely together over the last couple of years to really reach out to our hyperlocal communities of the Ville area and Swansea. It's kind of interesting because while all of these other buckets were being, in my opinion, pretty innovative, this one, we're almost taking a step back and kind of going back to the basics, and really trying to hone in on those grassroots outreach efforts. So we're doing things like, mailers, which isn't super sustainable, but flyers in the mail, surveys, text message platforms, things that neighbors have told us are the best way to reach out to them. And then, of course, we have ongoing check-ins with the mayor's administration as well as Denver City Council. And then that takes us to 25, and that's really where we're going to be disseminating all of this content and really creating a high visibility and frequency, so that we're top of mind for folks locally, regionally, and nationally. I kind of alluded to it, but number 3 on this list is arguably the most important. Next year, we're going to be launching a massive, in my opinion, it's a massive marketing campaign. And I've just dubbed it the Center campaign because the idea of it is really setting us as the National Western Center up to be the center of innovation, the center of flavor and culture, the center of learning, which goes hand in hand with what CSU is doing on campus. And then, of course, 25, ideally, we're going to be building this momentum up until 26. Livestock Center will be open. Ideally, we're going to have the biggest stock show ever in 26, and then hopefully followed by just an incredible year of exciting events. So again, kind of diving into these focus areas, events, marketing, brand awareness, and so forth. One thing I do want to mention is we are seriously considering and looking at a mobile app, and that's something we're actually going to be bringing to the board meeting next in September, because it definitely requires a lot of time to discuss. There's a lot of different elements to it, but if we can figure out how to make this work, it is going to completely set us aside as far as customer experience and user experience when they come to campus. People will be able to purchase tickets to events. They'll be able to find parking information, ADA accessibility information. They'll even be able to buy concessions through this app and then go to the concession stand and just pick up their food. It'll really just set us aside. And not only that, but there's this huge metric side of it where we'll be able to contain all of the information, contact information for the people who have visited the campus, and then we'll be able to market to them in the future. Which is something that we have never had before. And then the other two graphics on the right-hand side are just kind of examples of some of the graphics that we're going to be using. You probably recognize it from like the little table tents that we had at Stock Show. We kind of soft launched it this year during Stock Show, with this video that we want to show you. Hopefully it works. Videos are always a little tricky with technology, so we're gonna try to play it real quick, just to give you a sense of kind of what this campaign will look like and feel like. Thank you. I'm not crying. It's beautiful. So that's kind of the basis of what we're going to be, kind of using as our new center campaign. As you saw in that video, we had a lot of different themes kind of popping up throughout, as I mentioned before, experience, learning, flavor, culture, innovation, and things of that nature that really speak to our vision and mission and stay true to who we are, but also kind of set us aside as this new hot place to be, basically. So that takes us to 2026. If I can get it. Oops, now I can play this again. Sorry, everyone. Okay, there we go. So that oh my God. Okay. So that takes us to 2026, where we will really be able to kind of pause for a moment, and rather than just focusing on our objectives, we can also look at our outcomes. We can measure against our KPIs. We can figure out what worked and what didn't. For the things that didn't work, we can pivot and try something else. For the things that did work, we can reinvest dollars in that and kind of stay the course with those things. As far as outcomes, they're pretty easy. It's what does it look like? It's increased event attendance and increased sales and bookings, more customers coming to our site and spending money while they're here. And then, of course, just staying the course with our ongoing outreach to GDS community members, et cetera, et cetera. Again, our focus areas and how we're going to get there. And then I will leave you with this as an ask for you all. As our board, you are our biggest brand ambassadors, so we just ask that you help amplify this message as much as you can. If you're signed up for our text message platform, awesome. Please just help spread the word and get other people within your network signed up. If you're not signed up, please get signed up. Also, anything and everything on our social channels that you can share would be tremendously helpful over the next year as we grow and amplify our following and our message and our brand. So We appreciate it.
You look at the number of international flights that come in and out of Denver, just increasing in the last couple of years. What, if any, interest do we have or platform do we create to look after a more global audience, not just local, state, federal? I mean, what, or do we even, Joe, do we get solicitations from anybody looking at Denver as a destination, and can we piggyback on what the chamber does or what Visit Denver does or what anybody else does and start to attract that user group, not just the goers, but the user group that's gonna use our facilities here, that what might come in from Spain or Australia or anywhere else?
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so pivotal that we stay super connected with Visit Denver and the Chamber and those types of membership groups. We are on their radar and they do refer quite a bit of business to us. I'll say we had the Farm Foundation, which is a national organization based out of Chicago, I believe. That was just here last month, and Brad was able to deliver kind of the keynote speech during that conference, which was hugely successful, because if you consider our target audience, everyone in that room, there were 150 people, but they were the 150 people that we really want to reach, because then they all go back to their respective states and organizations and ideally book their next conference here. So we are actively trying to market to those specific mission aligned organizations. Do you want to add anything?
No, I think you said it right. I mean, those ones, each time Visit Denver's already actively touring this facility on multiple groups that have come through, and there is a lot of interest in the 2026 realm, and that's because the LEC will be online, and that brings a big piece to that. So I think that turns the key for us to have a lot more of what you're talking about, global, national, each one of those lead to each other. And even if it is a national event here, a lot of times that'll have a global touch and people coming in to see what's going on and stuff like that.
I think that the most effective international reach we have right now is CSU. I mean, CSU has international events. They're bringing guests from literally experts from all over the world to their events. And every time CSU has an event, folks come to this campus that may not have come here otherwise. The impact that Spur is having on the awareness of this campus is very significant. And I think, and really that is today, I suggest where the international impact is, the seeds are being planted.
If our aspiration is what, the reason I'm sitting here is that guy on that screen, first time I met him, he asked the question, how do you feed 9 billion people by the year 2045? That's the reason I'm here. And that's, if we're gonna go, beyond just thinking we're a little small thing, we need to follow that guidance and that vision. And I think aggressively, I hope aggressively. So if we're gonna be the best in the world, we need to start acting like it.
And maybe someday consider changing our brand to the International Center.
Yeah, you could find it.
Anybody have any other comments for Jenna? Questions?
Jenna, just a thought, I mean, two points. One is, as you think about your stakeholder groups, right, you've kind of laid out this kind of series of concentric circles. But I think one thought would be, as you build that awareness is start to think about, all right, we have 64 counties, right? We have, and how do we engage the office in the conversation, which is the conversation we had with the legislature, when we were doing Spur. How do we start to make folks know in southeastern Colorado that this place is here. Right. And then obviously we have Colorado. So, I mean, I think building those circles, with Colorado is important through Colorado. Second is, if you go to our logo, we have a lot of fun, and John, again, was a part of this, we have GES at the base, and the whole point of that was, it's a point of origin. So the idea that the center is a point of origin for all these conversations, I think you can build here. And it ties back to the history of how we got to that level too.
Good. Where Jessica? Oh, there she is.
I'm here, I moved. So I have a quick presentation for you, just update you on procurements, talk about a couple fun topics. I think they're fun at least. So just a review of kind of completed procurements that we've done thus far. So of course, the equestrian center, that's kind of the biggest one. We have DAS, which was more of a sole source procurement. Rigging services was the same. Food and beverage experience and its counterpart phase one concessions. The district sign plan, landscaping, snow removal, janitorial services, and the Cup North parking garage. And feel free to jump in if you have any questions regarding any of these previous procurements or as we move through. On the next slide, we'll look at, so we have one last RFP for this year, and that is ticketing. So we're looking for 3 ticketing providers. I believe on my next slide or one, yes, I was right. We're looking for 3 providers. We have a set of qualifications. You know, we're not looking for any ticketing provider. We are looking for 2 of the larger global presence kind of ticketing providers, and the 3rd would be a more nonprofit, small and medium, event focused sort of ticketing provider. We have it set up to where it's kind of a hybrid between the process for equestrian center and kind of our standard process. So what that means basically is we're doing one-on-one meetings. I thought that was best for negotiations and to get feedback on the RFP from the people who are really the experts, and for them to provide comments and give us the opportunity to issue addendums as needed. So to shift and to really understand their perspective. Each ticketing provider will have a unique selection criteria based on their qualifications. So the qualifications kind of serve as pass fail, and they have a certain set of criteria that they have to meet depending on which, I guess, priority of ticketing provider that they're proposing as. Any questions on that? Okay, on the next slide, we'll talk about potential procurements for 2025. This is just a preliminary list. This is what we think will be headed our way. So snow removal, that will be dependent upon renewing our current contract. Campus security services, a parking app, waste management, IT services, window washing, beverage sponsorship is a really cool one that we're actually working with WSSA on, and then some event needs as well. And potentially, depending on where the district sign plan is, getting ready for the construction of the signs eventually. Anything to add, Joe?
No.
Perfect. Awesome. So we have some contracts, in the works that we're drafting, getting close on. So the cellular tower sub-license agreement, with CTS is one. We have a rigging and event AV services, agreement as well. We have a few fiber sub-license agreements. We're working on a sponsorship partnership agreement with WSSA to collaborate per the framework agreement on sponsorship opportunities. I think it's a great way of using our partnership to really avoid any confusion and really, I think, pool our resources together.
Does that go to the operations side as well, so we avoid the duplication of effort on?
It does, yeah. So the authority won't have to go hire a sponsorship team. We're gonna revenue share some of the areas in the campus based on the framework agreement that Kelvin and I really did. So anyway, Steve, you make a great point. That way we're not having 2 teams selling assets across the campus and confusing the market. I mean, you gotta have one team, so.
Does that lend itself to not a restructuring, but maybe an addition of
Yes.
what you've been working on the WSSA side, that you have an executive group, if you will, that makes sure that we're all on the same page going forward?
Yeah, and there will be a need for other, employment assets. We'll have to bolster up just a little bit. No cost to the authority in that case. We're just gonna, to sell and service the volume that both stock show and the other assets are going to bring, it will take more employment. I'll have to hire some people. So. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's perfect. Sorry, for asking that question. We're working on a booking sort of deal points agreement with OVG regarding the equestrian center and hotel procurement. We're also working on a sublease agreement with MS Cleaning LLC. Joe, feel free to jump in if you would like. They're a smaller business. They approached us looking for some help. They don't have a local office. They're kind of working out of their home. It's a minority-owned, women-owned business, and I think Joe had a great idea of how we could help them.
Yeah, but basically, it's just finding smaller categories on the campus that we can, this campus can be too big for some groups to be able to come at and so we're segmenting some certain little areas that we can work with smaller groups, and this is one of them that we're working with first.
And on the next slide, we'll talk about a really exciting part that I'm really, excited about, I guess, is the total year-to-date spend on local, small, disadvantaged, minority-owned and women-owned businesses. So we're sitting at 59.68% right now. And we're about, this is from June, January through June. So I expect that this number to bump up even more. We are also onboarding a new janitorial service provider that is a minority-owned business. And that's a large contract, so that will increase that number as well over the year and into next year, hopefully. On the next slide, we'll talk about job creation. We're sitting at about 291 jobs were created via our contracts. SSA is a huge part of that as well. And again, we're sitting at about mid-year. So I'm hoping that in the next quarter, we'll have some better numbers for you. Any questions?
One question, 2 pages.
Okay.
Page 3 of the report and page 7. If you can pull them up, it might be helpful in the future to add or to quantify the significance of the contracts.
Okay.
So if we're receiving income, or if they have a value they perceive in their budget, or excuse me, in the presentation, like even though they get it with this one, right? Like, what does that mean in terms of dollars?
Yeah.
That'd be great. And then also
Absolutely.
page 3 is the other one.
Okay.
This
I
one?
can-
No, well, let me see. Maybe the one before that. Yeah, that one, the completed procurement, page 2. Just to know that, the volume.
The volume,
Yeah.
okay, absolutely. I can definitely add that in. Thank you for that.
Yeah, but that's great. I mean, you guys are very busy, obviously, and.
In 23, that gross number we're about 1% higher on local, small, and minority women-owned businesses year to date. Last year, that amount was about 1.3, was the total amount. It'll continue to grow. Obviously, 26 will grow a lot. We'll see how it's going to continue to be challenging to hold that high a number as those numbers grow into the millions. Sure. But that's really what we're striving for.
Anything else for Jessica? Anybody? Yeah.
Unprecedented number of participation, by the way.
Thank you.
Joe? We've covered part of your stuff, so have at it.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk a little more about facilities today. Facilities is sometimes the quiet thing going on in the background, but it's an important thing. And some of our staff, Wesley, Omar, have been working diligently behind the scenes to make sure that we're getting everything that we need set up to continue to march forward here. So a lot of the things we wanted to highlight here is campus infrastructure and assets. We continue to go through, gather all the information. There is a lot of information out there in a lot of different places. What we're trying to do is gather that all into our locations, so we know exactly everything that there is going on with the campus. So we get the as-built, we get the drawings, we get anything and everything infrastructure that's been out there from NUCO to others, put it into our documents, our way of recording all of this stuff. And the reason that that's so important is because that allows us to much quicker resolve issues, or we're doing constructions, or we're looking at things that we can pull up very quickly, what's going on. The second piece of that is that you'll be able to tell the health of the systems from the very beginning of their lifetime, which is not always something that people get to do. We're kind of lucky in that instance that we get to track the time that these things have been built. We're gonna know the health of these systems. I came from a previous place where that was lost in translation from different entities, and when that happens, someone has it all in their mind, they leave, and everybody else is.
You want this next slide, right?
Yes, sorry, yeah. So sorry about that. So like, everybody else has that in their head, and when they leave, all that information is gone. And so what we're really trying to do is to make sure that we have captured all of this so that this will just be a continued piece for 20, 30 years down the road, it's just a very successful plan to make sure that every asset on this campus has the best use of life and gets through all of its systems in the best way. So I got off there a little bit, like, then we also are putting everything in what we talked about before, which is Apex, and it's an asset management plan. And the reason that we talk about that, and I get kind of excited about this, but it's not a real exciting thing, but it's a way that we can capture every single thing on this campus and manage everything from a table to a door to a tree to this, know exactly everything about that asset so that we can really put together a good picture of knowledge, not only for the campus, but for everybody who's on the campus, to be able to, when we're engaging with contractors, with projects, with construction, we know what's going on with that. And then the bigger piece also for that is it really gets us a good budget picture. So we can let Stephen know, here's the whole picture of the campus down to doors all over the place. And one of the things I kind of wanted to highlight with that is the work that goes in behind the scenes on that. I use two examples, one being a tree, because we have lots of trees on this campus. The amount of information that goes into capture one tree to make sure that we're tracking exactly its health, when it was planted, how old it is, its trimming. There's a lot that goes into that to make sure that we're keeping this looking in the best health that it can be here. And then I use another example is a door. Seems like a simple thing, not a big deal, but the fact that we have to make sure that is the swing right on that, is the pressure right on that, is it to ADA standards, is it damaged? If it is damaged, what's the rating on that door? As far as like, how, is it a 1 hour rating? Is it a 2 hour rating? As far, so that you don't swap those doors. Cause I've been where you've had that, where that's happened. When that's happened, that's problematic with code. And when we get inspected, that's problematic down the line. And then also just making sure useful life and all of those things. So one little entity can have so much built behind that. I think that's lost in a lot of times when we just walk around facilities and we don't understand them or understand what's going into every single thing that you're looking at and seeing. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things because that's what our teams are putting into place so that going forward, 20 years out, we know everything about an elevator, an escalator, a light, a door, a channel. And for a lot of people in construction, that probably makes total sense. But for other people, those are things we don't really think about when you're going around and looking at all this kind of stuff. Really hammering into our operational budgets. We're getting our bearings now, so we're putting in some monthly meetings with the operations team, facilities teams, to really align every single thing that's going on here to the point so that when it comes to budgetary time, we're getting a much better picture of what is the needs and what's coming up, whether it's capital or operational. So we can just do a better job that way. And then safety. Safety is a huge piece for us coming up here. We're kind of lagging in that slightly, but we're going to be able to really do our hazard analysis of all of our jobs that are coming on here. We have a new position that will be coming shortly in the future. And when that does, one of their big pieces is to make sure that everything is working well safely on this campus and that we have proper emergency response plans and that our emergency response plans and issues are talking to our partners in emergency response plans and that those are talking to our community. So those are going to be big lifts that we have coming up here in the future to make sure that this is cohesively communicating. It's a lot that can go on in different places. Right now, we have a good communication system. We just want to amplify that and really hammer that down and pin it down. So we're capturing any liability or issues that we're not seeing big picture wise and have those planned and put into place. Big building that's being built right out here, the livestock center, it's a big deal. And it's a big deal for us to make sure we're commissioning that correctly. So we talk about that over and over again, but we have worked with Jacobs and Newco to have a really good, and the building team out there, Wedding Turner, to have a good commissioning plan, what we're gonna need, how we're gonna do our trainings, how we're gonna onboard that our staff are matching up with what they see as needed for that building to come online. And we've walked through that all with our timings. So everything seems to be aligned well that we will have a very successful commissioning and be able to bring the building up and online exactly when we need to. And then we're talking about future projects. So the equestrian center is one of those. We're also looking at, maybe there were some projects that were built that weren't all the way that we wanted them to, or they're already having some issues or stuff like that. Trying to figure out how to put those into our capital improvement plans. Where do they land? What's the importance of those? Just to make sure that the campus is again, continually to improve. Maybe it was here, but we wanted to get to here, or maybe there's just new technologies already kind of the works that are coming. So we're keeping an eye on all of that and making sure that we're planning that into what we're doing. And then continuing to build our relationships with our vendors that are out there. We continue to need to have very key allies and vendors that are learning this campus with us, that know the buildings with us, so that when we call upon them, they're able to jump in quickly and help out. And that's kind of been a fun process right now. Facility support on the next one. Yes. As you know, we brought on Omar, we talked about that a couple months ago, and I really hammered into a lot of what he's doing. Wesley's been assisting him on getting a lot of that going. There's still a lot of work to go on that, but it's been very successful in the first months, and he is moving at a very quick speed. We now are able to bring on Desiree. She's gonna help bridge the gap. Brad talked about it a little bit. But as far as what her role is gonna be, but I think one exciting thing about each person that's coming on also is that they get to take some relief off the other people who are here. So she's gonna take some relief off the other staff so that they can really focus on other things that are going on as well. So that's a double exciting piece with this one, but it's really gonna help interface the way that the campus runs and interface with the partners. So as there's more events coming on, big events across the street over here, CSU, that we're making sure we're doing a much better role in our place to communicate that and to coordinate that ahead of time, so nobody walks in confused as to what's going on campus, what's this, what's that. Trying to really get in front of a lot of that, and this position is going to help with a lot of that communication. And then really what I spoke to already is we have another position coming on in the near future. And then 25, what we're trying to finish up here in 24 is to really lay ourselves out here to be prepared to bring on staff in 25. So what we spoke about previously with grounds, maintenance, conversion teams, engineers, electricians, all of those are coming in the near future. So we have to be prepared to bring them all on in the near future. So that's a big thing that we're headed into here, which is preparing for all of that and getting them ready to go. And this is just another look at what's coming for 24, what we're working on. There's a couple edits in this that won't be made, but in general, this is pretty accurate to what we have done and where we're at right now. And then we've shown you this, but I'll show it again. This is what we're looking at in 26. And these are kind of the necessary roles that we really need to go to be prepared. I'm 25, I apologize. This is what we need to be ready for 26 as we go there. And so this is our big pressure, but also exciting point right now that we get to do this. This is what's coming and this is what we got to prepare for. And then finally, what I spoke to before is growing and developing key relationships. Right now, PRG being one of them that you've heard about, INET, Rondinelli, these are just groups that I put on here. CSU Forestry, what a fun one that was. I got to go pop trees for a good solid 2 hours. It was only supposed to be for 30 minutes and we didn't stop. We could have kept going actually. And they're helping us with the health of our trees and understanding them and really getting to know all of that. So making those kind of key alliances that are support to us, and it only makes sense that that is happening. So that's where we're at with facilities right now. I don't know if any, oh yeah, and then additional facility components that we have coming up here. Big operational plans, those are just ongoing that we've kind of been talking about and referencing back to as far as security, IT, DAS, all of those communication things that need to be able to not just talk about this part of the campus, but future parts of the campus and phases. Safety, sustainability that I've spoke to and will continue to keep coming back to. Wi-Fi, commuter train and triangle connections, which we're putting together. We'll talk more about those when those get the green light to fully build and stuff like that. With the connection over to the triangle that will make it easier for people to get from the commuter train over to here until the pedestrian bridge is in place. And then just staffing, hiring and training, onboarding. We'll continue doing that in a big way in the next two years. Those are our highlights for facilities, so. Thank you. If anybody has any questions on anything that I went over, feel free.
It's really great progress, great organization. Well done. Thanks for that.
Thanks for the org chart, it's helpful.
Yep, no problem.
One just add on the facility side, small thing, but it's a big thing to us. This building, as you notice, is being renovated. We've started on the south side of the east wing. They are shortly gonna be moving around here and all the windows go away. Literally, they take the window sashes out, they dip them, they clean them, they make them, they go from being what they used to be, which was double hungs to single hungs, but all the windows in the building will actually open again. And but they're also tuck pointing and cleaning and removing all the outside of the grout. They do that with chisels and grinders. They're about to get over here in the next month or so. We are going to be moving our entire operation to the man building. And I don't have a for sure date on when that is yet. But it is entirely possible that our September board meeting will not be here. So that's a pretty important safety tip. We will let you all know. We will either have it in the man building, because there's a large space where we could do that, or it'll be in the Stockyards Event Center. And that's where we will be for at least a year. We're looking at scenarios for after that, what happens. But the majority, if not all of our team, will be operating short-term and long-term out of the man buildings. We're working with Newco right now to get that transition completed through a long-term license agreement. Then it will morph into actually being populated into our master lease. And we are well underway with our team on looking at design and what furniture is in there that we can reuse, what furniture can we move from here that makes sense. Trying to do this as efficiently and as inexpensively as possible. We've got some good strategies around all of that, but
Well, if you need help in the interim, just give us a call, because we have the VIP room, like if you're
oh, yeah,
stuck in between places, we can have this meeting there.
yeah, great.
Or we got you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plenty of space. It's sort of
Interior.
interior of the man building. So they're working on the outside. We have to be out by December 1. December 1, this building will be emptied, and they are going to do substantial interior construction. All these ceilings come out, new mechanical, a lot of new electrical, a new elevator, some new main bathrooms get played. They're gonna keep the old existing ones, thank goodness, but add accessible and you will also see Q3 of this year substantial lease up efforts for this building. Obviously, Calvin's going in on the third floor. They will take the majority of, if not all of the third floor. Their idea is to keep this fourth floor available for a single full floor tenant. This is gonna be the prime space, and so they'll be working on that, and then 2 will be multi-tenants. If we were to come back to this building, we would be somewhere in a small space on 2. First floor is going to be a destination steakhouse. Is what's gonna happen on 1. They are working with a group on that. The drawings, I'm told, are almost done, or are they completed, Steve? Do you know, are they in for permit for this building?
I don't.
If they aren't, it is imminent. It's happening right now. And I would say they're also doing historic tax credits, so they're working with the state historic preservation officer around the historic assets in the building. They're well underway with that. So, I mean, you think about, and their goal is to be done for January 26. So 26 is gonna be very different. Like this will be done, LEB will be done, Sioux Institute Rogers Livestock Center will be done. So it's gonna be exciting time.
When Joe left, so Brad, you might want to pass this on, but this just a minor thing, but there's this tree thing, since he was talking about trees. EU is doing this big master plan for trees, and then it turned out Auraria campus was doing a big master plan for trees, and then the 16th Street Mall folks got involved. And all three of those groups started working with Denver Forestry and I think CSU. But it might be worth, they've got like this coalition that's going and now they're expanding it. And this guy was telling me about all the information sharing and I said over trees and he said, yeah, it's huge. And I think it was like 8,500 trees in those three alone. But anyway, it might be worth you guys joining that group. Yep. So that's a good deal. Maybe I'll give you the contact person. Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Any public, anybody on board from public, Jen?
There are just a couple members of the public on. If anyone is interested in making comments, please raise your hand and I will promote you.
I don't know why I'm up there, but I don't have it. Yeah, I kept checking, I'm like. You're in parallel universe.
Or somebody's impersonating you.
Yeah, somebody's impersonating.
I think we're good to proceed.
They're off now. So,
Do you wish to call for motion, sir?
yeah, motion